Hello and welcome to today's show. I have a case study for you. It's about a US educator, Evelyn Kohl LaTorre, and her intercultural marriage memoir, Love in Any Language. The show today is brought to you thanks to the Your Family Stories system, which helps you write a loved one's life story. Now, I'll have some free sections for that one towards the end of the show, so please stay with me to get these freebie. If you are brand new to Forever Young Autobiographies, it's where we learn to write life stories for family and friends so that unique memories can live on. And I'd be super grateful if you could follow, subscribe or like the show. So this memoir is a beautiful account about the trials and joys of intercultural relationships, and Evelyn's putting this book out. It's coming out on September 28 through She Writes Press. It's actually her second memoir. Her first memoir, Between Inca Walls, was about her time spent as a Peace Corps volunteer to Peru in the 1960s. And here she meets a college student, Antonio, and they fall in love. So this second memoir picks up at that point. The pair find out that they're pregnant, they get married, and then they move back to Evelyn's home, California. At this point, Antonio, he's probably culturally expected to be the head of the family, but he has to learn English. He has to study, finish his studies, and then find a job. And Evelyn becomes the breadwinner of the household. She starts full-time work and she's learning to parent at the same time. So I caught up with Evelyn recently to find out more about her book and her writing of that book, and she had some tips for news story writers. So I'm just going to summarise this. This is a snippet of a larger article on the topic I have over at my website. I'll have the link for that down below. So Evelyn starts out by saying this second book came out after her first book because she had two leftover chapters. They were cut from her first book and she was like, I'm just going to have to write a second one. But she actually had some questions that she wanted to work through for herself. So in her first book, she explores the idea of how is it possible that a good Catholic girl, in commas, good Catholic girl, becomes pregnant and she's not married. But in this second book, she has more questions. She wants to know, look, how is it that I've had this intercultural marriage and it's been joyful, there's been challenges, and it's been really long lasting. So she wanted to explore that question. There was a lot of support for her along this writing journey for both books. She had great encouragement and feedback from friends and readers because this was published publicly, to wider appeal. So she gets readers writing her emails and giving her a call and letting her know that, it was really, really well done. Her husband, on the other hand, who is the subject of both books, wasn't particularly keen on being part of her books, but they came up with a compromise in that she's changed his name. So I thought that was really quite interesting, that how she solved that problem. Let's talk now a bit about the writing of this book. Now, unlike the first book, Between Inca Walls, A Love in Any Language took 1 year to write. Her first book took 14 years to write, but Evelyn said she'd learnt a lot from that first book. So Love in Any Languages took 1 year to write. Now, granted, she did have a background. She's an educator. She's done degrees. She also learnt to write this kind of life story by going to workshops and joining writing groups. But she says the writing also was helped along by all the memorabilia that she'd kept. So unlike the first book where she had journals, she actually used her Christmas letters, decades of Christmas letters, to write this second book. So that was quite interesting. But what challenges did she have in this writing journey? Well, first of all, she said it was very difficult to know what to leave out. And she had to be very disciplined in making sure that her writing was interesting for the reader. And This included writing a good story arc, which I have touched on in other videos. What positives came out of this? There was many rewards in this writing journey. Of course, you're getting the reader feedback, and she's had recommendations for her book to be read by book clubs and for other people's friends and family to buy the book. So that was terrific. But Evelyn also said she learned a lot about herself in hindsight, and of course, lots about the writing and publishing industry. So to finish up the show, Evelyn has some tips for us as life story writers. She says whether you go mainstream publishing or you're publishing for your friends and family, writing a life story is incredibly rewarding and incredibly doable, she says. Now, where to start? She recommends starting with a memory, and once you start with one, it's amazing what that subconscious is going to bring to the surface and what you can remember. A big point for Evelyn was to write truthfully and without the embarrassment, because she says it's by examining these things in our life that lifts the burden and it lifts that shame that she felt. And by doing this, she became freer. She became freer. It's a very freeing process, actually exhilarating, she says. So really wise words for us as life story writers. So to recap here, I've talked about Evelyn's new book, Love in Any Language, which is coming out next week. I've also talked about her writing of the book, the journey that she went along, and some tips for new writers. As I said, I'd love for you to check out the full article on this topic, on this show. Go to foreveryoungautobiographiees.com/love in any language. I'll leave the link for that in the show notes. My hope from this show is that you will find able to write a life story just like Evelyn, with truth and with heart. While you're over at the website, or while you're here with me right now, I'd love for you to let me know, have you got a love story that you want to write about, or maybe you're including it in your life story project? And that could be an autobiography, it could be a memoir, a biography, or something else. Leave me a comment at the website, on this platform, or even send me an email with anything to do with life story writing, whether that's planning, writing, editing, or publishing. To do that, go to foreveryoungautobiographiees.com/contact. Now, towards the front of the show, I talked about the Your Family Story system, and I have a free gift for you, which is sections to this system. Now, you need to go to foreveryoungautobiographiees.com/free. The Your Family Story system in its entire package will spell out the steps that you need to sit down with a loved one and interview them, so you get their life story, and then you package that up. The free section is just a bit of a taster to get you started, but to see if you'd like the whole system. So please look for the link down below. Go to foreveryoungautobiographiees.com/free. So I will be back again with another life story writing topic. So until that time, please follow, subscribe, and like the show. It's super helpful actually, in that you're notified when another show comes out. So until then, everyone, happy writing.